Welcome back to Out There Live TV, live documentaries, live stories. You choose whichever. We're very easy here. And you were joining us on episode 4 with the beautiful, the amazing, the layered Sian Elizabeth Faire. And we've been ploughing into your life story. We're on our 4th episode with the series called Academically Pointless. Before I go into this episode, you know, how matching is that title, do you feel, Academically Pointless?
Yeah, no, I do. I think I've grown up with qualifications being the be all and end all.
Yeah.
Yet when I look at where I am, the actual qualifications are pretty much irrelevant.
Wow.
And I mean, you know, from work that we've done previously, you know, I still battle with that need to have a qualification. You know, like a couple of years ago, I spent thousands to get a qualification that, did I really need it?
Yeah. And I applaud you. I mean, I battled to get no qualifications. And that was my choice in school. And I left school with that achievement. It takes a lot to leave school with nothing. And now trust me, I was the champion. I was the Cambridge University of no qualification student. I'm very proud of that, actually. At the time, I was not. So we have the reverse going on. Yours was about as many as you could stack, and mine was about as many as I didn't have to do. And you know, I didn't attend any exams, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand why I needed to sit and do an exam. I couldn't see the value of it to me. Plus, I didn't have the confidence anyway. How would that sit for you?
I think I have gone through phases of really struggling with exams. 1 year at university, I really struggled. I'd find that my mind went blank as soon as I opened that exam paper. So I had some challenges. I think it was my 3rd year, but I managed to overcome it for my final year. But I think the thing is that for me, really, it's not really about the exam and like the outcome. It really should be about the learning. Mm-hmm. And like obviously now, like even when I did my GCSEs, I think like the English language and English literature were both all coursework. Rather than exams, which like there's like huge debates on like like how much should be coursework, and you know like whether that can then be manipulated and everything. But the reality is that it's actually what you learn and what you take from it and how you apply it, and rather than learning for learning's sake, or like being good at exams because you can read something and you can just straight away recall it.
Can I come in there?
Yeah.
And I want you to think about this with us. We're on our 4th episode. Each episode that we've worked through, there has been 2 layers of conversation: your emotional life and your academic life. If I was to create a measure in percentage of your enthusiasm of conversation into one or the other, would you agree that it is much easier for you to talk about your academic strength than what would be Sian's freedom of strength?
Yeah.
Okay. Because even then, you come in and you rolled your academic excitement, the freedom you feel you get from your academic achievements. But we're also realizing there is no freedom, because you talk about academia as being, you know, a learning experience. So I have 0 I have zero academic. No, I have a degree that I really shouldn't have, but I've had because I fitted a tick box for our government's, expenditure. I did work at it, but not the way you would have for a degree. Do you feel that I've learned less than you in life?
No, because I think that's one of the big things that I'm like more and more aware of as I've got older, is that it's not just about learning things and like a tick box or passing an exam, that there's more to it. My issue is that I still really struggle to go that all this experience I've got, taking the qualification that I've just spoken about, I had all the skills, all the experience. I just didn't have a specific qualification that pulled together all those skills into one. And so I spent thousands getting it. And I don't really feel like I was any better after achieving it than I was before, because it was a tick box. Mm-hmm. But then I also don't think that people see me any different.
Correct. There.
And so then then that becomes the academically pointless, because I spent thousands and it hasn't really moved me on. Maybe it has in my mind, because it was something for me, it was a tick box for me.
Or was it for you? Shouldn't a tick box be for you that you can walk into a social environment and feel free to express yourself? Wouldn't that be a tick box? Rather than another certification? Just a thought. Yeah. Just a thought. Let me dive in here, because here we are. It's October 1996. You left uni.
Yeah. Now
24 years, and you're in a relationship with a lad that you met. Yeah. On your postgrad, if that's correct. Yeah. Yes. You started a career with BT so that you could move and live with your uni boyfriend, Michael.
Yeah.
Yes. This career was, of course, commercial management.
Yeah.
Okay, blame me, I stuttered through that, me put my teeth back in. And you and Michael got engaged in the year of 1998.
Yeah.
That correct? Michael was different to all the other past relationships, and here's why. Past relationships and experience, including the life you had with mom and dad, because Michael, you feel, genuinely put you on a pedestal. He saw you as perfection.
Yeah.
He loved you for that. I mean, how did it feel to have another human being for the first time in your life to share openly his love for you, put you on that pedestal over and over and over? And I'm going to share this. Your words were to me, and let's go into this. You were emotionally terrified of being loved unconditionally in that way.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was uncomfortable. It was just... It was difficult to sit with it.
Wow.
So
he is voicing that he loves you.
Yeah.
He is voicing that you're beautiful.
Yeah.
He is voicing that you're perfect to him.
Yeah.
Would he voice that out to others?
What about me? Yes.
Yeah. So he voiced to his surroundings unconditionally that Sian Elizabeth Faire was his perfect life.
Yeah. It was my maiden name, but yeah.
Yeah. I hear you, girl. Put it in there. Yeah. But let's look at that. Let's think about this. Was it not at any given point during this relationship with Michael you thought, wow, this is actually a really good feeling, to feel wanted, to be seen. He saw you.
I think so. After his original job, he got a different job where he started to work away, and initially he was just working away Monday to Friday, and then he was working away like 3 weeks at a time, and it became harder because I started to have my own life when he wasn't around.
Mm-hmm.
And so then to be taken back into that, I don't know whether I went into like comfort zones because I filled my time with exercise, so possibly I did go into comfort zones, but I struggled with like all-consuming the
Do you
thought
mean
of
being loved? All-consuming, you know, my wife consumes me because she loves me. I consume her because I love her. And I have to be careful here that I'm not shaping this. But I also want us not to miss a layer of this life of yours. So my original question was, this chap loved you unconditionally.
yeah.
Did that not feel nice?
I think I struggled to feel it. If I think back, I did, like I was studying at evening classes, so I was coming home late sometimes. So I think I was like removing myself from
Wow.
the relationship.
It must have been hard for Michael, because when you are trying to love someone and trying to press into that person how beautiful they are, how perfect they are, and it keeps getting thrown back and thrown back and thrown back, it would create a divide. But that's the sabotage, the cycle that we keep talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like sometimes like we'd like go out in the evening and I'd find like the conversation difficult, but then that's probably the whole like social skills rather than anything to do with like the relationship per se.
Yeah.
But I blamed it on the relationship.
Okay. And that would be understandable, because let's remember, mum and dad's relationship is what caused the cycle in the first place.
Yeah.
Their parenting, their insecurities within themselves caused the relationship. So now that is unfolding, where your experience, wait, I can't be loved in this way. You're not asking me to actually achieve anything.
Yeah.
So there's no way that you can love me. That can't be possible. Why do I have to trust this? Then there would be, no, this isn't right. Because effectively what we have is that there was a self-sabotage emotion here, which you took into the marriage.
Yeah.
With Michael. Because in 2000, you got married, but also you shared me, Paul, you know, you felt the wedding day was a celebration for your parents, not for you personally.
Yeah.
You felt that the whole wedding day was a formality rather than something you felt whole for you.
Yeah.
I can only imagine on the wedding day, he was like the cat that had the cream, because he's in love with you.
And I didn't really want to go through with it.
And you didn't really want to go through with it.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to force someone not to love you. It takes a lot to force someone not to fancy you, not to want to be with you when that's their whole encompass of what they feel.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of skill, but let's bear in mind that before we got here, you learned to isolate in environments where there was no room for you to be isolated and have your own home, have your own room, have your own space. Now you're going through this again, because we're creating that same isolation. Now we're academically full, We have the whole life ahead of us. We have the whole journey. There is nothing in front of you that is preventing you from being successful in life, bar for everything that you went through in your emotional childhood. Wow. Share me your thoughts on that, Sian, because it's quite deep and it's a techie thing to go into. It's emotionally technical. For you, we are with the person that wants to love you forever. But for you, it's not love at all.
No, I just, because he was working away a lot, and he'd suggested even one of his friends, their wife had actually moved out to San Diego with them for the 6 months, and he'd like even suggested that I did that, and I just wasn't prepared to give up my independence, my life, my job, which I then ended up 2 years later leaving because I didn't enjoy it, but I wasn't prepared to give that up for him.
What independence was there? Again, we're unfolding this life story here. What independence was there that you were giving up? We get married, and you know, when you think, was mom and dad independent of each other?
When I was younger, definitely not. So, for instance, because it was only dad working when I was younger. Mum, he gave mum housekeeping and money for her. So he was the only breadwinner. Mum went back to work as a teacher. I'm trying to think roughly. I can't remember when that would have been, but she did supply teaching when I was still in primary school because she was my teacher a couple of times, but she didn't become a full-time teacher until I think after I'd left. But she then obviously had her own money. Dad worked up in London, so he would only get home. He'd get home like 6:15 every day.
There is this independence in life, then, because here's what I want to come back in here, which is, and I got this written down. Never really getting a grips with anybody seeing you in the perfection Michael did, meaning that never really embracing someone loving you. And I'm told we go into this early part. There was going to be breakdowns. You see, when we reject, we end up becoming rejected.
Yeah.
That's the nature of that emotion. So, of course, the destructive part, when I say the destructive part of your childhood, the childhood that had to learn that emotional endurance that you had to learn very early, which was perform, love, perform, love, perform, love. That you gain from, that you learned from the controlling part of your home. Then, of course, this self-destruct come in. Because you talked briefly there about, Michael started to make his own journey, you started to make your own journey. But so there was a separation. But here we are, is that now you opened an affair with another man and you forced in the arm of separation, which means you've now controlled the energy, you've controlled the outcome.
Yeah.
Because you had to be in charge of the outcomes always, because if there was no outcome, you didn't know whether you were going to achieve or not, and you had to achieve. Now, this isn't a measure year of what you did. This is your life story in layers. At 30 years of age, you're now in a relationship with a man you had an affair with, while being married to Michael Benjamin.
Yeah.
So Benjamin is now in your life. Some say when they meet an individual through that exchange of coming out of one and going into another, can be a love for life. Some say that it just incurred another cycle. So Benjamin is 5. Now, let me just come here. So I just want to talk briefly into the emotion of this. Michael saw you for everything you are. You couldn't see that. You didn't want that. It petrified you. It created that distance. And then for yourself then, being on your own is important in a sense of that space, but also being on your own is something that doesn't sit with you, because now now Benjamin has come in before Michael has left. That is not about deceit. That is about an emotional bankruptcy, where for yourself it's the stress of being completely on your own. Does this make sense?
Yeah, I think it was partly, I suppose, a way of like you say, it's almost a way of forcing the hand that making it happen.
But there were other approaches to being able to separate that. Why we go in there, Shani, why we go in there is because we need to really appreciate the layers that you had gone through that had conditioned you.
I felt very alone.
Yeah.
At that point, I was addicted to exercise. I was being bullied at work.
Oh, wow.
I hated the job. I'd then managed to get voluntary redundancy. So I left my marriage at the same, like just after getting voluntary redundancy and retraining to be a personal trainer. And it was almost like, it was like a fresh start doing the personal training. I wanted someone to share it with.
Yeah. Okay. So
And
is this convenience, do you feel?
Yeah.
Rather than love?
I think it probably was initially, like whether it was initially or, yeah.
Because Benjamin was 5 years younger than you.
Yeah.
And there was certainly a strain of a different maturity between
Definitely.
yourself and himself.
Yeah.
Did you feel you were out of the frying pan into the fire? Did you feel that?
I don't think I saw it as so serious as he saw it initially.
Okay.
When I moved to Wales, he decided to get a new job and move to Wales with me. If he'd not made that decision, I don't think I'd already made the decision to go. I'd already bought a house.
Whether you come or not, you
Well,
were
that's
going.
it. Yeah.
Wow. Was there, as there, up to this given point in time, do you feel there had been any relationship of any shape and form in your life that had your loyalty of lifelong investment?
No.
But yet also within this strain of, and I felt that when you answered that question, I come from a deep place there, and thank you. But there was a strain of jealousy also that ran through you.
Yeah.
Now that jealousy is something that we adopt in from outsource measures, opinions. Now the jealousy would have come in your life when you were measured against your cousins. So
I think jealousy for me is like about almost like it's also the fear. It's the twist. It's like twisting it into like it's the fear of not being good enough. So the jealousy of someone else is because the fear is that they are better.
Yeah.
So it's the fear of not being good enough plays out as jealousy.
Wow, that is so technical. That is so technical. Let me take this into this next life chapter. which is a decade of my past life, is what I've called this. And this is the discovery of what unfolded in the 10 years from your relationship with Benjamin, from our research period. In fact, it was huge for us. For me, it was, being that you married your mum and dad in the shape of Benjamin. Now let's go into this, look at this cycle, okay? Benjamin turned out he's very controlling.
Yeah.
Also, he did not support you unconditionally in any shape or form in your life. He would make you feel pointless and inadequate. Repeatedly said you were a poor mom and did not deserve a child. I get emotional at that one. He groomed you into depression and would then get fixated on your depression, claiming you were not fit for life again, let alone to be a mom. All this time manipulating a move to build a case to take custody of your son. The relationship fell apart,
Yeah.
which it was designed to do that way. It was designed to fall apart from Benjamin's control. And your son was no longer in your time, in your life full time.
Yeah.
Now I've got, under this notes here, I've got deep dive.
Yeah.
I've got the notes and I want to tentatively go into this because this is, there are layers to this. Karma is an incredibly powerful emotion. So we left Michael because he loved me too much. He saw me too much. Then we move in with Benjamin that doesn't see you at all. So when we think about that, the nature of those layers, Dad saw my potential too much, but then he had to control that for his own wins. Michael saw your potential, but you had to control that. And that someone have seen your potential also put you in that place of fear, because that means I now have to achieve, because that's what you grew up with. Then, of course, when we come to Benjamin, now we've got the full cycle of mom and dad. In a different shape, of course, because he's bringing his childhood into your relationship. Tell me a little bit about that time, if we can, please.
So obviously, like initially, whilst he was younger and immature, he was living in nurses' accommodation. He was working for the NHS, and he was living in what is equivalent to a hall of residence. It started out obviously as like a break, fun, and I was never aware of the controlling nature.
You used the word fun there.
Yeah.
You started out as fun.
Yeah.
But yet it's this very stressful environment because you're in a relationship
Yes.
whilst then starting a new one.
Yeah.
So we're saying fun is stress.
Quite possibly.
And again, we're going here because it's your life story.
Yeah. I do think potentially I thrive on stress to an extent.
Yeah.
And I've become more aware over the years that I can be quite cyclic, and I can like work with a level of stress, and then at some point I will completely crash.
But this is what you were presented with, though, in your relationship with Benjamin.
So when initially, like I say, I didn't realize that he was controlling, and it took a long time, and I did have periods of depression, and like we had various issues prior to having Nathan, and I'm trying to, so I recognised that there were problems before Nathan. The the fact, like, you know, we had counselling at one point, and he said that I wasn't ready to be a mother. The counsellor said that I deserved, that, you know, everyone had the right to be a mother. And it was like, at that point I was 36, or 35, 36, I was that sort of age. And so I was obviously, like, my biological clock was kicking in at that point. And like, for him, obviously, he, like I said, he was younger, and for men it's not such an, like, it's not quite such an like key thing. So, but it was like, he honestly did, you know, like, he wasn't saying anything. He wasn't saying anything he didn't believe. And that's the thing. And like, the control, it was never anything. It never felt like it wasn't being done on purpose. But like, when he met me, he knew I worked in fitness. I worked awkward hours. Yet then when we were together, he resented me working those hours. But that was who I was. And so it, like, whereas I suppose Michael had accepted me as who I was, and had said, like, I was now, like, in a relationship where I wasn't okay as I was, and I needed to try, and I needed to adapt.
How desperate were you there in this relationship to get out, but yet you're a mum?
But even before that, it was like, even before then, I'd got to the point where I was like, right, I need to have a child now.
Okay.
And like, that became the thing that was more important.
Okay. Oh, wow. Did you feel that the child would perhaps pull you together?
I'm not really sure about that. It was that, like, now is the time that I need to have a child.
Okay.
And so, like, we were married by that point, and it was just like, I need to have a child now before it's too late. And so therefore, I'm in this relationship. I need to have the child in this relationship.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's a huge statement. And I understand it. Is that, so being with Benjamin in that relationship, give the reason or give the ability to have a child? Because you didn't mention, I wanted a child with him. You said, I wanted a child.
Yeah.
We missed, I loved Benjamin and I wanted to have a child with him. We missed that bit out completely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like, say, we were having intimacy problems. We had counselling. And the fact that, you know, it didn't help the fact that he said that I didn't deserve a child.
Yeah.
You know, that I wasn't in a place where I could have a child. So,
where did that measure come from? Where did that measure come from where that the person that you were married to felt they had the qualification in life to decide whether you were going to be a fit or unfit mother? What do you feel you were presenting in, if anything, that would allow for that measure? Because you are an amazing individual, amazing lady, and here's why we're asking this question. Again, it's a very intricate part of your life story.
I don't.
An apology, because that was quite an intense question.
No, it is. It's really, you know, like, he didn't, like I say, he didn't particularly like the fact that I taught classes in the evenings, you know.
Jealous of what you were doing, jealous of how you looked, or just jealous of everybody else in life if they were doing better than him? Was that what you were married into? And this isn't about Benjamin, it's about the emotions you married into.
I think, I don't really know, because obviously I don't you know, you can't say what another person, you know, like the whole
What
thing
do
is
you
you
feel?
can't, yeah.
It's
So
what you feel
it's
is
what,
what's
yeah. So really, like, I felt over the years that he destroyed me.
Yeah. Or just added on.
Well, yeah, but it was, maybe that was so that he could keep me.
Yes.
So, but it didn't play out that way in the end. But then he did keep my son. Or our son, I should say, not my son. Our son.
And I understand, and I feel that, girl, I do. Let me move on a little further with this. I want to go into this life chapter, which we know that the relationship with Benjamin is breaking up.
Yeah.
And we know that we're now in another stressful time where you're having to prove yourself again. So this life chapter is, I lost my dad and regained my life. I lost my dad and regained my life. At 41 years, your dad passed suddenly after falling seriously ill on vacation in Gran Canaria. We can know the whole story, that's not how it, but here's we are. So dad had a heart attack and got operated on while out in Gran Canaria. You spent 4 weeks in Gran Canaria supporting your dad while waiting for him to recover strong enough to fly home via what was air ambulance. And then, of course, putting your life on hold for a further 2 months to support dad is what I have in my notes here. So let me just come in with a question, if I can. Did you feel obligated to look after dad? Or was it something you felt was for you?
So it was more support for mum than dad, because it was mum that was on it sounds awful, but dad was in hospital, so dad was being looked after, whereas mum was on her own in a foreign country. Like, dad was on his own in a foreign country, but his physical needs were being taken care of. Whereas mum was very isolated. She is diabetic, she's type 2 diabetic. And so one of my concerns was making sure that she was eating, you know, and because we were worried about how she was coping on her own.
Okay.
Because she was never on her own.
Okay, I understand.
So I went, so initially when dad was in hospital, I went out, and I just went out for a long weekend because we thought dad was just waiting to be fit to fly home. That wasn't the case. While I was flying home, they eventually did the checks that they needed to do, the tests, and they said that they needed to try and put stents in. They said he could die. So literally, I came back on the Monday, and that Monday evening, I taught my classes at the yoga studio that I had. And then my brother and I bought flights via Dublin because it was the only way we could get out there the next day. My brother and I flew back out on the Tuesday. My brother only stayed a few days because he had a job, and it was acceptable for me to give up my, put everything on hold, whereas it wasn't acceptable for my brother to do that. So I stayed out there for the 4 weeks and was basically with mum 24/7.
Which in itself is not a vacation.
No.
Even though most would say spending time with mum is, but also during this time, you decided that you're going to leave Benjamin. The separation year, this was going to be a very turbulent separation also.
It wasn't it wasn't exactly that first time when I went out to Gran Canaria, and then when I came, and then like the time that I was travelling between Cardiff and Essex, when my dad was in hospital in Essex and I was still supporting mum. It was, I think, like the whole accumulation of that was, and then dad actually passing, that it was just, life is too short.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know what's around the corner. It was, you know, like dad, you know, mum and dad went on holiday, and the reality for me, and it's my reality, it's not necessarily what my mum thinks, it's not necessarily what my brother thinks, but the reality for me was that, for me, my dad, when he flew back on that air ambulance, was not my dad anymore.
Okay.
So by that point, he was, you know, like he was like needing oxygen he couldn't swallow. Okay. You know, like he went back a living body, yeah. But he was, for me.
You feel dad had already left.
For me, yeah. And I say, neither my, you know, it is my feeling, and I know, and I accept that it's not what my brother or my mum think, but that's how I feel.
Well, let me steer us into this last portion of this episode here, which is, of course, sadly, dad did not recover, and dad passed on the 1st of April 2014.
Yeah.
Now, there were so many mixed emotions that we talked about in our research here, that you faced during this period, you know, that when dad passed. There was, these were bullet points that we came up with that you felt was so strong, is that you felt release. You felt removal of guilt. You felt you didn't have to prove yourself anymore. A huge sense of freedom, a huge sense of release. These are two different emotions, no longer judged. The release of, you know, the emotional letdown, and the release from competitive expectations and fear of losing. Although, you're still working on this. This was just a list of few. Now that, please, this doesn't mean that, you know, this isn't putting any of your parents in a spot. This is all about you. But you got to where you are through circumstances and the support, not support, version of support. But when we think about this list here, tell me, are these emotions that remain, do you still feel, I still feel there's a release. I still feel that, you know, there was a removal of guilt. Or was this just dad's version that left and then mom's version overtook?
So this, like, definitely, I think the feelings of the majority of what was going on up until my dad passed was driven by dad rather than mum. Mm-hmm. But so whilst all of that then released, I have now what was secondary, like talking about being the friend of my mum, that sort of thing, went higher, because obviously, like, mum and dad, you know, they were married for over 50 years. Yeah. They, you know, like, they were together after finishing work. You know, they were retired probably for around 15 or so years. So dad took early retirement, and so, like, they were, like, almost constantly together. Mm-hmm. And so there was suddenly a void for mum.
Did you feel you had to fill that void without even being asked? Did you feel, this is my duty?
Well, you can see straight away, what did I do, even when dad was in hospital? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So...
Yeah. So the cycle is still ongoing in some way?
Yeah.
Wow. And here's what we're going to do is, we're going to take us into episode 5, where we're going to rejoin into what is the layers of these last 4 episodes. So come back with us on episode 5, and then we're going to take you into how the passing of Dad, and has there been an element of release, how that is playing out. Sian, it's been amazing. It's been fantastic. So do jump in with us now on episode 5, and yes, we'll catch you there with, of course, the amazing, wonderful Sian Elizabeth Faire.